Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to call upon Ms. Lalith Weeratunge to address you. Thank you.
Mr. Niwad Cabral, Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Lieutenant General Jagat Jayasuriya, Commander of the Sri Lanka Army, Air Marshal Harsha Abevikrama, Commander of the Sri Lanka Air Force, former commanders of the Army and the Navy, very distinguished invitees from our friendly countries, and friends. My friend Governor Cabral left me with a rather pleasant task. He laid the foundation for me to take off, in other words. During the last 3 days, in this landmark seminar organized by the Sri Lanka Army, you have seen how Sri Lanka became the wonder of the world, so to say. None believed that Sri Lanka would be at this stage today. Let me therefore, first of all, pay a handsome tribute and also warmly congratulate all those who fought for the sovereignty of this country so that we are able to speak to you today like this. Just imagine if we were to hold this seminar during the last 3 or 4 years, I don't think Jagat would have taken that risk of bringing all of you gentlemen into this room. I just don't know what kind of security we would have had to have. Having said that, I just want to share with you some thoughts. The thoughts that His Excellency the President laid before the nation over the last 5 years and in 2005 when he first contested the presidential election. And in it he said that he wants to bring an honorable peace to this country. And in doing so, he also laid out his plans for the country. And for the first time we see in Sri Lanka a document which was just an election manifesto being converted into a planning document. And that is Mahinda Chintana, the thoughts of His Excellency Mahinda Rajapaksa. I'm privileged to share these thoughts with you. You have heard all of this, but just I'll tell you that the 3 decades preceding 2009 mark probably the most bleak period in our history. And in the social and economic history of Sri Lanka, you saw how debilitating it was. I think Governor Cabral made some excellent details available to you so that you saw what kinds of losses we have incurred. But let me just say some of the important things that I would like to maybe focus on. Huge political uncertainties. Without political certainty, without political confidence, government can't go on. Government simply cannot plan for progress. If you don't bring in investors, as the way Governor Cabral showed you, our economy can't take off. Simply there was diminished productivity. That was what we had all these years. And the cost of this huge war against terrorism, one cannot estimate precisely, but once again, the economists, the government, the central bank, they estimate this to be around 1 to 2% on an annual basis. Our economic growth would have been much better had we not had this curse among us for the last 30 years. Governor Cabral focused on what the government did, particularly in the north and the east, because those were the two areas that was completely ravaged by terrorism. Just to tell you one fact, the entire northern province had such a good network of railways. Envy of Sri Lanka's railway, if I may say so. But over the last 30 years, the terrorists dismantled this beautiful piece of infrastructure that was built over a period of time. And once the government took over these areas in 2009, the whole thing has to be totally rebuilt. That is the devastation that has been caused. So LTT not only destroyed their own people's infrastructure and lives, so to say, but they destroyed the entire fabric of Sri Lanka. That is what you heard about during the last 3 days in this hall. The war on terror. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Secretary of Defense, I think in my understanding made one of the best presentations in encapsulating from 1971 when we first faced an insurgency up to the time we defeated terrorism in 2009 May. He brought into focus within 1 hour the entire gamut of our experiences, our interventions, what we have gone through, what we have done to remedy the situation, and also the fact that although we fought a terrorism movement, that development never stopped. And I think that was also the crux of what Governor Cabral presented to you today. Now, in a far-sighted pre-election manifesto, as I said, the Mahinda Chintana, the thoughts of His Excellency the President, he articulated his vision to build an inclusive, harmonious country emerging from a post-conflict situation and post-financial crisis in the global economy. Whilst we had a conflict here, there were also crises all over the world. And that is what makes this entire experience a landmark experience, not only for us, but I think having heard some of the most eminent speakers over the last 3 days, you would realize that Sri Lanka has positioned itself wonderfully well in this very uncertain world. It's noteworthy that even before the war was over, once again, as Governor Cabral said, Mahinda Chintana took head start in addressing conflict-related issues and post-conflict development. Even in the midst of ongoing fighting, mega development programs, particularly focusing on the Eastern Resurgence and Northern Spring development, they were carried out with much success. Once again, you saw all the details and the outcomes after 2 years of hard work. The remarkable post-conflict growth level was thus facilitated by these visionary strategies embodied in the Mahinda Chintana. His Excellency the President, when he presented this document to the country, once in 2005, he renewed some of the pledges that he made and added a new area of development. In 2010, January, just a year back, and in it he says, the underlying philosophy is that formulating all our strategies was not only just to bring about harmonious development in the country, not about bringing honorable peace, but ensuring that every individual would benefit out of the actions that the government would implement. Let me just quote from what he said. He said, to win the world, develop the country. To develop the country, strengthen the village. Sri Lanka has 77% of its population in rural areas. To strengthen the village, protect the family. To protect the family, care for the person. This is the core of Mahinda Chintana. By blending your thoughts, Mahinda Chintana was developed because it was open to everybody in the country. People contributed towards it. By drawing on your courage, we fulfilled your aspirations. His Excellency went on to say, I promised you a free nation. I promised you sustainable development. I assured you a better society. I assured you a land of plenty. I delivered. That's what he did during the last 5 years. That is from 2005 to 2010. the children of Mother Lanka, Sinhala, Tamil, Muslim, Malay, and Burgher, look to us with hope to be their trustee, to be the one to realize their dreams. And in 2010 he said, now I present to you our vision for a brighter future. Together we will make the journey with your trust. I will deliver. And that is what the new Mahinda Chintana is all about, and that is what the emerging wonder of Asia is all about. The World Bank's managing director, when she visited Colombo in December 2010, just a few months back, she said, and I quote, Sri Lanka has what it takes to be the wonder of Asia. Through inclusive growth acceleration, implementing policies that promote the inclusion of all segments of society in the growth process, as envisaged in the Mahinda Chintana, which would be crucial. Sri Lanka has won the war. Now it must win the peace. This is the pedestal from which we take off. Mahinda Chintana also very clearly presents to its readers and the country that the gross domestic product alone does not bring economic prosperity to the people. It is imperative, and it is the goal of Mahinda Chintana, to increase the GDP, to provide benefits to every segment of society in a justifiable and an equitable manner. The creation of prosperity to the majority of the people who cannot purely rely on market-based solutions requires connectivity through roads, electricity, telecommunications, information technology, and education and health services. We are certainly promoting investors to come to Sri Lanka. It's probably the best time for Sri Lankans. It's the best time for those who want to come to Sri Lanka to invest. But while promoting investments on infrastructure based on commercial and economic returns, it is also the core focus of Mahinda Chintana development strategy to advocate strongly for sufficient measures in place for people to gain access to such development. We believe that every individual must benefit out of this effort, not just those 23% who live in the urban areas. Let me just skip a few slides and get to the core of what I just want to present to you today. In order to ensure growing economic prosperity, Mahinda Chintana envisages the emergence of 5 key economic hubs, capitalizing on the country's strategic geographical location. The first one, naval, not in order of any priority. Knowledge, we want to create a knowledge society and a knowledge hub. We want to become an aviation hub. We also want to be a commercial hub and also a power and energy hub, particularly in Asia. I think this is also important for me to share with you. A few economic targets that we are trying to achieve. This is, of course, the domain of my good friend Governor, but I will share these thoughts with you. In 2005, our GDP was in US dollars, billion, 24.4. In 2010, rose to be 56, doubled, more than doubled. But in 2016, we want to be at 98 billion US dollars.